The inevitable truth is that your life won't last forever. You think about the people you love deeply, and thinking about it might actually hurt. Have you ever wondered if you missed opportunities to show more love, give more love, or demonstrate more love? There are times in our life when we are reminded that there is nothing more important than love. Because the greatest single need and desire of humanity is love. To love is the greatest power, privilege, and freedom we possess. And every thought, word, and action motivated by love matters. Love is the highest expression of what it means to be human. What I'd like to offer you is the idea to not leave love left undone. There may be things you don't accomplish, attain, or achieve in this world, but don't let shrinking back from love be one of them. If you're fortunate, you discover that love is the only thing that really matters. Love heals everything, and love is all there is. That's why I've started a love wave, an intention to demonstrate the undeniable possibilities when we look at life through the lens of love. After all, as you look back at your life, I'm sure you'll agree that life was always about that. It was all about love. This show is intended to highlight those that are committed, like I am, to bring their experiences, insights, and wisdom to advance what we believe to be true. That love is still the answer. Welcome to Love Wave Live. Hello and welcome. I'm Joe Atalig. I'm your host for Love Wave Live. And for those of you who have been watching an Unconditional Life, it's the same thing. We've just transitioned to something that I started last year, actually. For many of you know that I had an event in Phoenix, Arizona, called Love Wave Live. And it's always been a part of my heart. My intention was to create a platform for teachers and speakers and healers and those that have experienced love in their life and how it's transformed them and has been a part of their work in this world. And so I had an event planned in San Diego, my hometown, this year, earlier in May. And because of the pandemic, of course, did the right thing in terms of postponing it. And notice I said postpone. I do plan to have another live event. So in lieu of that, I thought what a great way to still bring the Love Wave Live stage to you remotely. Now I've decided to do that. And on this platform, every Saturday on this channel at Love Wave Live, and also being broadcast on Spirituality Gone Wild and all of the other networks that they are affiliated with. So today is the first day of a new format that I'm introducing, where I'm bringing on individuals who are committed to that idea that love is still the answer. They are practitioners, they are coaches, they are speakers, they are transformational healers, and many times what I call divine nobodies. I mean, just significant humans who just have a heart of gold and understand that love is the most important factor in our lives, especially what we feel and experience in the world today. So over the next few weeks, I've already lined up some amazing people who will take the Love Wave Live stage. And instead of doing the interview format that you have been used to, I'm going to give over the stage to my guests and allow them to impart the message that is coming through them. And then when they are complete, I will come on and we'll have a conversation over what they've shared and really bring out the nuggets that I know that I've taken away. So I'm going to encourage you in the chat to please comment or ask any questions of our guests so we can make sure that you're also involved in all of that. So with that being said, I'm just really tickled to introduce my first guest in this new platform. And she is Lisa Taylor. Lisa is a former news anchor and producer for the Christian Science Monitor, and now works as a spiritual practitioner. She's also a coach and speaker. She lives on a gorgeous island in the Pacific Northwest. That's a whole nother story. And she's there with her husband, Jay, of 30 years. Now, Lisa has been on a journey of spiritual self discovery her entire life. And through a very hard won process of trial and error, has discovered that a consistent practice is essential when connecting with one's true self. And this clarity has allowed her to serve others and help them find a path of practice that's right just for them. Now, I've known Lisa for over 2 years now, and I met her at a weekend retreat. And it was an intimate retreat. And what I mean by that is there were only 4 participants, which, of course, in a weekend, you get to know each other pretty intimately. What that's turned into is an ongoing friendship, relationship, and accountability, I would say, in terms of us holding each other to our highest capability. I would be remiss if I didn't mention another partner in that, Mr. Mark Castle, who is a part of a 2-day-a-week mastermind that we've had for 2.5 years. So without further ado, I want to bring on, so I can say hello to my good friend, Lisa Taylor.
Hey, Joe.
There she is.
Hey.
Lisa.
Oh my gosh. I was like, I was bursting at the seams to want to just cheer you on and say, thank you for the intro, by the way. But I love your intro, your video intro. And it's like, there's so many things that I want to respond to. It's like, I just can't keep them all in my head. So it's just wonderful to be here. And thank you so much for inviting me. It's really a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to have you, especially in the first format.
I'm honored to be your first one in the new format. That's really nice. Yeah.
It's really a phenomenal opportunity, I believe, in taking the stage. And it's a virtual stage. And in today's day and age, that's appropriate, right?
Yeah. It's awesome.
Just as powerful as an in-person connection, we know that energy and vibration can actually come through, virtually. So I'm excited to have you on.
Thank you.
Today's, your talk is called Choose to Be You. And so I'm sure that our audience is very anxious to see the wisdom and the insight that you're going to bring today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you, Lisa Taylor.
All right. Well, thank you so much. The idea of choice is probably one of the biggest concepts that I was gifted as a young person growing up. I had an interest in God very, very early, and went to Sunday school and was brought up in a Christian tradition and learned a lot about the spiritual laws of the universe, and was always just fascinated with what spirituality was, what God, who was God, who am I as a reflection of God, and grew up in that sort of very broad sense of life and being and nature being based in spirituality. And what I was given was a choice to choose that identity or to go along with what the world was telling me. So my mom was a metaphysician. Her mom was a metaphysician. My dad's dad was a surgeon. So I had a very spiritual background on one side of the family and a very medical background on the other side of the family. And we were always given the choice which way we wanted to go with healing. Did we want to take a spiritual route, or did we want to take a material route? And the fact that I was given that choice very early on, my dad and my mom actually had an agreement. My dad said, well, if they're not healed in 3 days, I'm taking them to the doctor, because it was good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for them. So we were always healed in 3 days. I grew up studying Christian Science in a Christian Science Sunday school and going to a Christian Science church. And the term Christian Science a lot of times is misunderstood. There's been a lot of sort of things attached to it that don't belong to it at all. So just very briefly, the definition that's given to that term by the discoverer and founder, Mary Baker Eddy, she calls it, or defines it as, the law of God, the law of good, interpreting and demonstrating the divine principle and rule of universal harmony. So there's not a lot in there about sort of religious dogma. It's a science. These are spiritual laws that anyone can utilize, that apply to everyone. They exist and they are in effect, and they're around us all the time, just like sort of the material law of gravity. It affects all of us, whether we like it or not. We don't need to earn it. We don't need to do anything to have it affect us. The same is true for spiritual laws. So I was given a choice at a very early age to rely on these spiritual, understand and rely on these spiritual laws. And what that did for me was open up this enormous world of possibility. Because as soon as, and the reason this is called Choose to Be You is because when you can see who you really are, you can be who you really are. When you can see yourself, you can be yourself. So I had the opportunity to get really clear at a very young age as to who I was spiritually and not just humanly walking around on the planet in the 5 physical senses. Because that was the mode of healing that I always chose. It was based in a knowledge of who I am spiritually. Who am I as a child of God? Who am I in the highest concept of my being? Am I the perfect image and reflection of God? In Genesis 1, God made man perfect, right? It's only Genesis 2 that we get into the Adam and Eve dream, where there's good and evil and all manner of heck breaks loose, right? So we choose Genesis 1. We chose Genesis 1 in our family. And we said, okay, we are going to dive into these spiritual laws. Get clear on who you are spiritually. Get clear on your spiritual identity. Who are you as a reflection of God? Well, in order to know who you are, if you're a reflection, right, you need to know the original. So I grew up really understanding and diving deep into who is God? What is God? How does God affect my life? And for those of you who don't use the term God, think of it as divine mind or all intelligent mind or the universe or the Om or the Buddha mind or whatever it is that you are comfortable with. Because the one thing I'm very clear on is I'm not a religionist. I do not believe that there's one religion or one philosophy or one path of study that has sort of the claim on truth. Spiritual law crosses all boundaries of religion, of philosophy, of socioeconomic divisions. It crosses everything, just the way the laws in traditional science do as well. So these metaphysical laws that everybody has access to are available to you, but you have to choose to tune into them, to listen to them, to apply them. Because if you don't apply them in your life as a human walking around on the planet, you're opting for, by default, all the laws and all the beliefs that everyone else is telling you is true. So get clarity on who you are. Are you the person? Are you defined by everything external to you? Your job, your relationships, your history, your ancestry, all of the stuff that would attach to you certain beliefs, characteristics, limitations. Is that who you are? Or are you the individual that is spiritually based, that is not based in anything external? So it's interesting. I was sort of thinking through what I wanted to talk about today. And of course, you do all this preparation and then you completely throw it away and say, okay, God, whatever you want me to say, that's what's going to come through. So I throw all of that away. So I don't even talk from notes. So what came up, though, was the juxtapositions of life. If we want to know who we are, and we want to know who we are going to express in the external, we go inside. If we want to have a satisfying life, and we want to feel filled up and satisfied, we become unselfed and we think of other. So there are all these juxtapositions in the truths of life that play on us, where we think if we want to know ourselves, we're going to look at all the labels on the outside. What do I do for my job? And how much money do I have in the bank? And how much do I weigh? And how tall am I? And how old am I? And who are my relatives? And what kind of family did I come from? And ancestor and all of that stuff, which means nothing, because all of that can be taken away. All of that can change and does change. Your body changes, your age changes, all of those numbers that are attached to your address, all of the numbers that are attached to you change throughout your life. So the things that are constant, the things that don't fluctuate, are the spiritual elements of who you are. And those are the things that come from God. Those are the things that are reflections of God, the core of your being. So getting clear about who you are, and then having a consistency, a practice, and I am a huge advocate of a daily practice. I started a daily practice very, very early on. It was like 6th or 7th grade. My mom came to me one day and said, you know, you're very interested in these spiritual things, and would you ever, you know, you might want to think about just taking time every morning and sort of opening up spiritual text and getting some spiritual insight in the morning, and then having that carry you through your day. And from that point on, I tried it the next day, actually. And I thought, okay, I'll try, you know, whatever. And I sat down and I read Bible, and I read some out of the textbook, Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures. And that day, I'm telling you, and this was junior high, 7th grade, when everything is, you know, 7th grade. You remember 7th grade, right? When you say everything wrong, you do everything wrong, you're tripping over your own feet and your own words. That day, it was like everything I said was perfect. I ran into all the right people. It was like I was in flow all day long. And I thought, oh my gosh, if reading for 5 minutes gets me this, I'm doing this the rest of my life. And that started a daily practice for me that, of course, has evolved and morphed and changed over the years. But it started then. And I'm telling you, that practice, that daily practice of getting clear about who I am spiritually, that's the thing that has changed my life. That is the thing that has guided me through my whole life. So getting clear, being consistent with getting clear, having a daily practice to do that, and then turning all of that understanding into contribution. It doesn't do you any good to be really clear about who you are and to have that all going on and be in flow and have a daily practice and have your life be a reflection of that if you're not doing it in service. The whole point of our being here is to fill that puzzle piece that God made you to be. There's no one else like you. No one. Never has been, never will be. Actually, I should do the other way. Never has been, never will be. I don't know. for your perspective, there never has been, there never will be anyone just like you. And for that reason, it is absolutely imperative that you show up on the planet as the absolute best of yourself, that you reach the potential that is you. You are brilliant. You have a gift that the world needs. And if you're shying away from that because you don't know what it is, or because you're too scared and you don't have the courage to stand out and look different or be uniquely you, you're doing yourself and the world a disservice. So we need you to be at your best. We need you to be the person that the divine made you to be. And how you are going to do that is to get really clear about who you are. I work with so many people they're successful, they've had their careers, they've had their, they've got the homes and the relationships and the kids and all the awards and all the things, and they're miserable. They're absolutely miserable. They don't feel satisfied. They have health problems. They're dealing with stress. And I often work with these people who are highly successful and yet feel very empty. Why? Because they don't know who they are, because they haven't taken the time to go within. We must find within us. The kingdom of heaven is within you. We must go within to find the ultimate expression of who we are, because God put it inside of us. So going within, going into stillness. If you are a mindfulness practice person and you meditate, bravo. If you go into silence regularly, bravo. The practice that you have connecting with the Om of your life is the only way to find truly who you are. When you can see who you are, you can be who you are. So clarity around that. Daily practice, consistency around that, and then choosing to make that for others, to be in service to something that is larger than yourself. It's like once you get to know who you are, then you get to throw that away, meaning you don't focus on it anymore. You're clear about who you are so that the divine can flow through you. So that if you're clear, there's a humility in that clarity, that it's not coming from you. We're not talking egoic source. We're talking divine source. We're not talking the little mortal ego mind that would try to separate you from source. That's the ego's job, right? That false sense of ego, that prideful sense of ego. The ego is trying to separate you from source and say, you're all that over here by yourself. That's what the ego tries to do all the time. So you are either leaning into ego or you are leaning into love. You are leaning into the divine sense of who you are, your divine nature. So knowing that the ego is constantly trying to grab your attention, is constantly trying to make it about you instead of about you reflecting the divine and fulfilling your life on your purpose of life on the planet, the ego's constantly trying to pull you away. So having clarity about who you are means that you'll be alert to the ego's ploys and you won't fall for it. You won't get sucked in. You will stay true to your course, to your true north. You will be the lighthouse for others to see that that's the result of having clarity about your true self. So that clarity is all important, and it's based in humility. It's based in knowing that the source of my being is divine. The source of my being is not little me. It's not my ego trumping everything, right? It's the divine flowing through me. So I have to have ego out of the way for that to flow through. If the ego takes center stage, guess what happens? That flow stops. And it becomes about the ego's presentation. This is not about the ego. This is about the divine flowing through you. So I want to tell you a little story because this sense of who you are shows up in different ways. Right out of college, I was working as a secretary. Not my favorite job, mind you, but I was working and I was being humble. But I had a yearning inside of me because I knew this wasn't syncing up with who I was. I knew that this wasn't my passion. I knew that there was something more that I had to give. And I know that many of you watching feel that pull. There's something bigger. There's something more. There's something you're being pulled to do. You're being called to do. Listen to that voice. That calling, that yearning that's inside of you is your true self trying to be expressed. So that happened to me while I was working as a secretary. It actually called a spiritual practitioner because I was so miserable in this job and I really wasn't very good at it. I mean, I tried hard, but I wasn't very good. It didn't come intuitively to me. So one day I'm just in complete tears. And the spiritual practitioner said, I don't even want you to lift a pencil until you can do it with love. So I would sit there for like 10 minutes and my boss would walk by. I was like, what are you doing, Lisa? I would be just sitting there praying. And one day I was so distraught. I went out at lunch in tears and just like, God, there has got to be more. I will do anything that you want me to do if I can serve you and you can utilize me for who you've made me to be. I will do anything. Just guide me to what that is. So notice that in the process of this story, notice that a couple of things are going on. I knew that what I was doing wasn't aligning with me. I had a willingness to ask for help. I humbled myself to the point of saying, I will do whatever the divine wants me to do. It didn't matter what the outward manifestation of the job was. I just wanted to be utilized fully. So I went out, sat down by a fountain, sobbing, God, I just wanted some clarity. And I said, I will do anything that you say right now. Just give me an answer. And it has to be really obvious. It needs to be an obvious answer. So I heard a voice. And it was so loud that I turned around to see who's behind me saying something. And there was nobody there. So I heard this voice say, Lisa, you'll be in Boston for a while. And I thought, well, that's not an answer. And I start arguing with this intuition. And I thought, nope, I said I would take whatever answer I may not understand what that means exactly, other than the obvious, but that's my answer. Okay. So I trusted it. That's another piece of this. When you get an intuition, trust it. And I got up from where I was sitting, a little bit comforted, but at least knowing there's an answer. I'm sure it'll be explained later. I got up, I walked like 20 paces, and out of this colonnade building walks my old boss and says, "Where are you these days, Lisa?" I said, "Funny you should ask. I just got a really clear sense I'm going to be in Boston for a while." He said, "Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that," because he knew I'd been struggling, right? He said, "Come upstairs. I want to offer you a job." It was like that. And that began 10 years in broadcasting, working for the Monitor, which was this incredible experience. Like if you're a news person, working for the Christian Science Monitor is like a kid working in a candy shop. It's like Pulitzer Prize winning, internationally renowned, like amazing, unbiased. So anyway, it was a brilliant time. I absolutely am forever grateful for that moment by the fountain where I listened and I followed and I was willing to serve. I was willing to be of service. So it combines kind of all of the things I'm talking about. The clarity of who I am made it clear that this job wasn't really aligning, right? My consistent practice leading up to that point put me in that place of being able to recognize that and to know what to do in the process. I called a spiritual practitioner for support. They were praying with me so that I would find clarity. I got up out of my chair, so distraught, humbled by the prospect of being where I was, that I went out and asked for more. I asked, ask and ye shall receive, seek and ye shall find. There's a promise in those statements. Ask. Ask for what you feel is right for you to be apparent to you. There's no reason why you can't choose what's right for you, because that's what the divine wants. The divine wants you to be you. So be the most you can be. See yourself clearly so that you can be yourself. So after that sort of broadcasting career, ended up going into teaching and education and working as a spiritual practitioner and always being available for healing and for helping others and for highlighting, kind of holding up a mirror for people and highlighting the spiritual laws that we know to be true so that people could see it in their life and see it expressed in their life. And a lot of the process of that, of loving yourself enough to tune into your intuition, loving yourself enough to turn over those beliefs and let go of those beliefs that would limit you, loving yourself enough to see yourself clearly and love who you actually are, not who the world is trying to label you as. Loving yourself. So holding up a mirror for people to see, who is that divine person inside? Who is that real identity? What is it that they have to offer that the world hasn't seen yet? Do you have a little secret inside of you, some desire that you've always wished to do, that you've always kind of, no, I don't want to, no, everybody around me would say that was silly. No, that's just a crazy idea. The crazier, the better a lot of times. The crazier, the better. I had an intuition one time, another story, I don't know how much time I have. I had an intuition. This was in college. This is like one of my favorite intuition stories. So if you have a little intuition, I'm going to tell you this story for the reason, for this, to illustrate this. If you have an intuition about what you should be doing or what you would like to be doing, what would bring you that sense of joy, follow it, act on it. So here's my story of intuition, or one of the many, but one of my favorite ones. I'm in college. It's 2 a.m. I'm up studying for finals. It's late in the year. I think it's springtime. It's like finals for the year, right? 2 a.m. I'm heading back to my dorm. And I get this intuition. Go to the infirmary. And I'm thinking, why would I go to the infirmary? I don't feel bad. I'm just tired. I need to go home and go to bed. I need to go to my dorm. Go to the infirmary. So I'm arguing with this angel, right? So I've grown up with this definition of angels, just a little aside here. Angels are God's thoughts passing to man. Spiritual intuitions pure and perfect. That's part of the definition. And that's from that book I mentioned before, Science and Health, by Mary Baker Eddy. So, and I quote that book a lot because it is, I've done a lot of kind of research around spiritual law. It is to me, it is the book that most clearly articulates spiritual law. And I go to it over and over and over again. And it really is an amazing, if you haven't ever read it, I highly recommend it. If you're into metaphysics and spiritual law, and it's based in a Christian tradition. So there's a lot about the Christ. But if you're not a Christian, you can translate that into whatever you think of as Christ consciousness. Just think of it as truth consciousness. But the spiritual law that's laid out in this book is amazing. Anyway, so I'm arguing with the angel. I don't want to go to the infirmary. Go to the infirmary. So, eventually it's like, because I've been obedient to those intuitions all my life, and I'd been in a spiritual practice for many years at that point, what I did is I said, okay, I know this is an intuition. This is a divine prompting. I have promised that I will always be obedient to the divine prompting. So I'm going to go do this. And I was doing it in protest. I'll go to the infirmary, but I'm doing it like I don't understand and whatever. I'll be obedient, but and all the way across campus. It takes like 20 minutes to walk across campus. And mind you, now it's like 2:30 in the morning. I'm grumbling the whole way across, and I get to the door, and I know, because I live on this campus and I've been on this campus for a couple of years, there's a sign on the door that says door locked at 11, ring buzzer. And I'm thinking on the way over, there's no way I'm going to ring the buzzer. I'm not going to wake up a nurse when I don't feel like I feel fine. I don't feel sick. I'm not going to wake up somebody in the middle of the night. So I get to the door and I stand there and I'm like in protest going, I'm not ringing the buzzer. And I hear this voice, try the doorknob. Really? Okay. So I try the doorknob and it's unlocked. So I go in, it's all dark, but I hear like sobbing. I hear somebody crying. This moves me every time I tell this story, because it puts me back in that place. And it was like this really amazing moment. Anyway, I walk into this building and I'm like going through the dark hallways, following the sobbing. And I get back to the kitchen of all places. And there on the floor of the kitchen is a nurse on the floor. And she looks up at me with tears in her eyes. And she says, how did you know to come? I've been praying that somebody would come and help me. And when you have an experience like that, well, I was able to help her. I got her to a bed and stayed with her that night, and finals were fine the next day. Everything worked out. But when you have an experience like that, it changes you. You know that there's some spiritual law that is governing this universe, that aligns everything, that keeps everything working in balance, that there's a law of balance, there's a law of harmony, there's a law of oneness, there's a law of love, that if we listen to our intuition, if we go within and listen to that divine within us, we are going to be guided to the absolute best life, not only for us, but for everyone around us. Now I have like mascara stinging my eye because I started crying. So now my eye is watering even more. So it's not like, okay, just a little aside there. Thank you. We need to listen to our intuition. We need to listen to that divine message that is coming to us all the time. That is what is going to make your life better and everybody else's life better. There's a line in the Bible, one of my favorite quotes, and ye shall hear the word behind you saying, this is the way, walk ye in it, when you turn to the right and when you turn to the left. You will hear a voice behind you. It's not like the neon sign is out in front of you saying, this way, over here, over there. The voice is behind you. Why? Because you have to trust it. You have to trust it and take action. And that's when things get good. And ye shall hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk ye in it. When you turn to the right hand and when you turn to the left. So notice that it says, when you're turning to the right and turning to the left, that's when you hear the voice. It doesn't say, when you're standing still, you'll hear a voice and it'll tell you which way to go. There's an imperative for us to act, to choose, to make a choice each moment to go forward. There's a poem by this woman, Phyllis Stoddard, that I memorized. I used to memorize poems when I was out running. And there's this poem that I memorized of hers that I absolutely love, and it is directly related to this. Standing before unknown waters with trembling heart, it isn't thus that the waters part and then you step. No, you step and the waters part. So it is imperative that we take a step. It's kind of like that scene, you know, the movie, I think it was in The Librarian, where he goes to the edge of the cliff and he's asked to step off the cliff. Is it The Librarian or it might be Indiana Jones? I don't remember. He goes to step off the cliff and the voice says, okay, take a step. And he's looking into this chasm and there's nothing there. And the voice says, take a step, the bridge will appear. And he's like, really? Really? I'm supposed to take the step into the big void? And don't we feel that way sometimes? That when we're about to take a step, it's like stepping into that big, vast void where they're, oh my gosh, I'm going to fall off the cliff. He takes a step into the void and this plexiglass panel appears under his foot, like the beginning of the bridge. And every step he takes going across this chasm, there's another piece of the bridge that appears under his foot. That's exactly what this poem is about. Standing before unknown waters with trembling heart, it isn't thus that the waters part and then you go, oh, okay, and now I'll take a step. It's like, no, you have to start stepping. And as you step, the waters part under your foot. As you step off the cliff, the bridge appears under your foot. You have to be courageous. Clarity, consistency, courage, contribution. Lots of C's. Choice, though it doesn't sound like the C, but it is a C. Lots of C's. Choose to get clear about who you are. Choose to find that clarity through consistency and through a daily practice. Once you do that, serve it up. Do it for others. Love. This platform is the love wave. Love. The whole point of this is to express love. You were made to express love in your particular flavor of it, in your particular little individual outline of it. That's why you're here. So do this. Make the choice to allow the divine to flow through you. Make the choice to be governed by the spiritual laws of the universe instead of the material laws. It will give you so much freedom. Make that choice. Choose to be the real you. So thank you so much for this stage, Joe. Where have you gone? There you are. I had no idea about timing. I was thinking, oh my gosh, I feel like I've talked a long time, but I apologize if I went long. I didn't see a clock anywhere.
You are fine. You're absolutely, this is perfect. A lot. Wow. Thank you. That was just beautiful. I
kind of went on, but that's okay.
No, I went with you when you were telling the second story about, when you went to the distillery. What is it called? Yeah.
The infirmary. Yeah.
Infirmary. Yeah. And did I say distillery? Oh my gosh. Where am I? Anyway, and I felt you. That was just absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of comments, and I want to bring one up before we unpack it. I'll bring it up here. So here you go, Lisa.
Oh, okay.
Eva asks, how do you help people who feel they are broken to realize that they are worthy and that they are God? What if they can't break addiction to drugs, alcohol, abuse of themselves and others?
That's a really good question. One of the exercises that I do, which has been really helpful for people, is to just make a list of all the things that you like about yourself. And for some people in those positions, they can't find anything. Like literally, they come up with nothing. And they have a whole list of all the things that they really don't like about themselves, that a lot of times hate about themselves, particularly people who are in addiction or dealing with substances that really kind of alter their sense of themselves. So the exercise is to make that list. Like, just be honest and say, you know what, this is stuff I don't like. And what you can do is you can flip every one of those negatives and ask yourself, what is the reverse of that? If I say I'm an addict and I don't have any control, what's the reverse of that? I can express divine control. God is the only one who actually has control and power. So if I'm the expression of God, I can express divine control, and I can express a sense of discipline. So it's taking every negative, like, oh, I'm too fat or I'm too heavy. I do express balance, and I do express right choice. So flipping every one of those negatives and just at least trying to recognize what would the opposite of that be. Not necessarily at that point being able to claim it for yourself, because you're not in this position. You wouldn't be in this position if you were able to claim it at this point anyway, right? So meet people where they are and say, look, these are all the negative things you claim for yourself. Great. Let's flip them and just see what are the opposites of those things. And just start the process of opening thought a little bit to the possibility that these are available to you. It may not be that you want to claim them or have the ability to claim them right now, but just know that they're a possibility. Look around at other people, and if you can't see it in yourself, start by seeing it in others. What good qualities do you see expressed by other people? So that they see that they can recognize goodness. Good is another term for God. Mm-hmm. So the law of God, the law of good, this science, it's the law of good. If you can recognize goodness, you can recognize the divine. So recognizing what is good in your life. A lot of people call it a gratitude practice. What are you grateful for? You wouldn't tend to be grateful for something that's not good. You wouldn't tend to say, well, yeah, I'm really grateful for being, 100 pounds overweight. No, I don't think you kind of go there. So I'm grateful that I'm a drug addict. I don't think people would feel grateful. So recognizing goodness, and then you transition from that place to, if you can recognize it, if you can see it, you can be it, right? If you can recognize it, then you know that it is there in the ether, in the universe. It exists. It is available to you. So just kind of making that connection. I hope that helps kind of answer or start to answer the question. That's a big question.
What a beautiful exercise. To add to that, I recall, and we've heard the adage that, we can't see the label from inside the jar.
Right.
And so I recall going through an exercise with, this was a workshop or what have you, but the part of the homework was to connect with 10 people that know you and to ask a specific question in terms of, when I enter the room and in your presence, what do you experience? What's your experience of me?
Oh, I love that.
And what they do, they're supposed to not just take it in, but they're supposed to take note of it.
Nice.
And then part of that is to call it back to someone who's maybe walking with you in your path, or in this case, it was, someone who was going through the same work that I was going through, and then recite it back to someone else and saying, this is my impact on others. Wow. And as you start to tell someone else, it's the practice of seeing yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's other people is just a reflection of who you are. So I really appreciate the listing of these things and then looking at the polar opposite of it.
Yeah, and then claiming. I mean, the next step really is to claim that. And sometimes, I think a lot of times with people who are really in deep, claim it even if you don't believe it yet. Mm-hmm. Just claim it. Just do the exercise and start claiming it. Just say the words. Like, oh yeah, those are empty shell words. Okay, just say them. Just get in the habit of saying them and claim them. And, mirror work. I know you do mirror work a lot. They're just sitting in front of the mirror and looking in the mirror and stating those positive qualities about yourself, even if you don't believe them. Eventually, you start to get a glimmer. It may take a little bit of time, and that's okay. Or it may be you may get it in the holy instant. And I love the holy instant. That's like one of my favorite things that happens in life, is when you get that shift in thought. When all of a sudden you get the aha and you realize, oh my gosh, there's actually an aha that brought me this incredible healing that I had. I was working in Africa, and I honestly don't know, because I didn't have it diagnosed. I don't know if it was malaria or yellow fever, because the symptoms looked kind of the same at that point. And I was flat out. I thought I was going to die. I was like ready to go home in a box. And I called a practitioner through a friend, because I was in Africa and it was very hard. This was years ago. It was kind of a difficult connection and timing was off. Someone was praying for me. I was passed out. Everyone I was there working with was like, didn't know I was in my room, was knocking to say, dinner time. And like I was out, completely gone. So I woke up and it was like a day later, and I was completely like, the bed was, the fever was horrible, blah, 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 all of that stuff. Woke up and I just had this thought, this very quick thought came to me. I thought, a mosquito biting my arm wouldn't change the way I feel about God. It wouldn't change the way God felt about me. And I actually laughed. It was so ludicrous that some little insect biting my arm would change anything about my spiritual identity. It was like, it was so silly. It was like, and I laughed out loud. And in that instant, it was like that holy instant, it broke the mesmerism of this sickness that had descended on my thought. And my thought shifted. And in that instant, I felt the fever drain out of my body. Like it just drained out of my body. My energy, I'm getting chills just talking about this. My energy came back. And the belief of that sickness is it's cyclical. So like 10 days later, it'll come back. And so two more times, the symptoms like kind of reared up in my body. And as soon as I felt them, I had that thought again. I thought, no. A bug biting my arm isn't going to change the way I feel. Like you can tempt me, but you have no power. And so it was gone. And then I was like completely healed. It never came back again. But that reminds me of one of my favorite concepts, which I don't know. It came to me on a plane somewhere, at some point. I was thinking about that scene in the Bible where Jesus is standing on the cliff and the devil is saying, "Throw yourself down." Mm-hmm. And I thought, wait a second. If the devil had any power, he would have pushed him. He doesn't have any power. Right. He just has the power of suggestion. Like, throw yourself down. Like, no, I'm not going to. So that comes back to choice. Choose what you're listening to.
Yes.
Choose which voice you're listening to, fear or love, right?
Yes.
Fear or faith. Like which ego or divine sense, spiritual sense or material sense. Like choose. Which camp are you in? Choose ye this day whom ye shall serve. It's like
the simplest question could be, of course, many times is the toughest many times, time. There's a question here I want to bring up. Samaj asks, can you please let us know what the name of the book was that you mentioned?
Oh, sure. It's called Science and Health. That's the name of the book, Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, because there's a whole chapter at the end that has like a key to the Scriptures. And the name of the woman who wrote it is Mary Baker Eddy. And you can find it in, Amazon and whatever. I would recommend that you get the authorized edition because there have been some other editions along the way over the years. And it has like a circle on the front with like a cross and a crown. That's kind of the emblem on the front of the cover. And it's published by the Christian Science Publishing Society. So just be sure you're getting kind of the authorized edition because you want to get the latest sort of, I don't know what you would call that, the latest published work. Because she edited it several times and, copyrighted, whatever. So it's
There's a lot. I'm looking at our time, Lisa, and I wish we had more time. There was so much to unpack from what you shared with us today. I just want to pull out a few things that really spoke to me. That idea of asking that question, who am I? Yeah. But the caveat was, who am I spiritually?
Yeah.
I started actually with the clients that I work with. I have a new client, and one of the first things I asked her was, tell me who you are.
Nice.
Silent. And what came up was actually what you spoke about. It was all the identifiers, of course, that she could recall. I'm a mom. I'm all these types of things. And then without even commenting, my second question was, tell me who you are. And as it started to unfold, right, you can see frustration and a little like, this is uncomfortable. Yeah. And it's when we get to that uncomfortable point where that's just on the cusp of the revelation, right? That's where we need to take them. Yeah. And I continue 35 minutes later, she is like in this state of, oh my God, this is who I am, right? Wow. And it came down to this, this idea of perfection. But as it's all these identifiers, right? And it is our identity that it either constrains us or it propels us based upon the question we're asking and what we're associating our identity to. So I really appreciate what you brought out. Yeah. I love how you talked about many times that our identity is associated with a number.
Yeah. So
right?
many
Our
times.
income,
Yep.
our weight,
Yep. Our address, our
our
age.
address,
Yeah. Our
our
height.
age.
Yeah.
Wow.
Our bank account.
Yes.
Everything. It's all numbers.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that epiphany came to me. Well, I was on a plane. Again, I was reading a book, and I realized the story and what's going on in the story has absolutely nothing to do with the page number I'm on.
Right.
It's like the page number, you can use it as a reference, and kind of like in life, all the numbers attached to it, you can use it as a reference, like here's my address, you can find my house, but it doesn't have anything to do with the character of my being. So the characters in the book hadn't, like, there was nothing about the character that was like on page 35, didn't say anything about the character in the book. So that was kind of that epiphany, which when you've hit on a little bit of truth, when you say something and people go, oh, that's like, it resonates with everybody. Like like that thing about, like, if the devil had any power, he would have pushed him. It's like people go, oh yeah. It's like, it's just so obvious. And it's so, anyway, I love those little bits of truth.
There was, oh my gosh, I wanted to talk to you about asking for a sign. You talked about your story when you were in Boston, how quickly, right, that sign came. I'm going to have you back because there's just a lot to unpack here. You said, be different, be unique, be you. When you see who you are, you can be who you are.
Yeah.
The things that don't fluctuate are the spiritual things about you. And you talked a lot about intuition, how critical it is to trust.
Yep.
May not make any sense whatsoever, but is the idea of to take a step.
Yeah.
Is that idea.
Trust it and act on it. So many people hear it and they kind of go, nah, that can't be right. And they just kind of let it go by.
Yeah. And what I really appreciated and valued was kind of your cry. It was like, I just want to be utilized, because many times everybody comes to that fork in the road or that uncertainty of, what am I to do? I don't know the path.
Like, what's my purpose? You hear that a lot, right?
Right. And so, so definitely had to come back. I'm looking at our time. Okay, we've come to, I always ask the guests that come on, first of all, thank you.
Yeah, I would love to come back, because you can tell I talk a lot. I don't have any trouble talking, so rein me in, Joe. We can do the Q&A part next time. Like, don't give me the stage.
Well, no, I'm glad you took the stage, and it was wonderful. So here's my first question is, if you were given a billboard that you knew would be seen by thousands of people a day in a metropolitan area, and guaranteed that they would see it, what would the billboard say?
Well, I have two. Can I have two billboards? They're well, let's see. Choose to be you.
Okay.
Choose, and then see you to be you is kind of, so it's like, choose to see you to be you, I guess. Put it all in one billboard.
Awesome. I love it.
Choose to be you or see you to be you, but like, choose.
Beautiful.
Or just choose.
Or just
choose.
Right. And then secondly is, if you could only be remembered by your words only, what would those words be?
Lisa helped me realize I have a choice to be my true self.
There's so much power in choice.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was I know that you're at the end, but very quick. I was in a workshop, and we were supposed to do a voiceover thing, and we were supposed to write something that was just about us. And I was like, kind of like what you're asking with the billboard. If you had one thing to say, if you could teach the world one thing, what would it be? And choice was the thing that came up for me. And this was like back in my 20s. So it's always been a kind of a pivotal concept in my life. And there have been definite junctures of choice that have changed things. It changes your life.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Choose spirit, right. Choose your spiritual self.
With the time that we have left, I know that you actually have I started to attend actually a daily morning
meditation.
Yes. Yeah. So if you take a moment, we have about 5 minutes left, but I wanted to include a few things. how can people get a hold of you? And for those of you with your comments and questions, I apologize that we're not able to bring those up in time, but I'm going to have Lisa back for sure.
I have
but
a
Lisa,
question.
You can also see these comments and everything back on the Love Wave Live page.
Okay, so I can put comments in.
Absolutely.
And answer. Okay, so I will be sure if you're asking questions to me, I'm happy to answer and get back to you. So please don't be dismayed that I'm not doing it.
And I'll instruct you on where to go, Lisa. You can take care of it.
Well, I do this thing. I do this thing called Morning Metaphys, and you heard kind of in my talk today how important it is to have a daily practice, and whatever that is for you, because it's different for everybody. There's not like one practice fits all. So Morning Metaphys is about starting the day connecting to your highest sense of self. And it's 15 minutes every weekday. We gather on Zoom live. It's quick. It's 7:30 in the morning Pacific time, so that works for some. There are people from the East Coast who kind of take a break mid-morning from their jobs and join us. We don't get a lot of international traffic just because it's the timing of it all. But my offer is for those of you who are watching this show to join us for the rest of this month for free, to just check it out, see if it is something that works for you. I highly recommend, if you don't like this practice, join something but get your butt in the chair. Get your butt in the chair every day. And it doesn't have to be at the same time every day. It doesn't have to mean the same thing every day, but something. So Morning Metaphys will give you some ideas about what that looks like. If you go to choose2beyou.com, which I think was streaming across the page when we were talking before, it will give you a little form to fill out, put in your email, and then you'll get the Zoom link. Oh, there you go. Choose to be you with the 2 and a B. choose2beyou.com. Put in your name and email, and then the reply email will be all the information to join us on Zoom for the rest of this month. And then you can choose to continue or not. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
We'd
love to have you. We absolutely love to have you in the group for now. It would be wonderful.
And if y'all join, you'll see me there. I'll be on it. Thank you again for coming on. And for those of you who have been supporting and watching and contributing, this is wonderful. Share with everyone that there's going to be a stage now of people who will come through and impart their wisdom and understanding. So I want to continue to foster that love is still the answer. And my intention is to provide a diverse perspective of souls, all pulling from the same source to deliver in their own flavor. That is my heart. And so I'm looking forward to having those that I don't even know come on the show. You can also follow me on social media, on Facebook and on Instagram, Joe Atalig. Also, Love Wave Live on both platforms as well. Would love to see you there. So with that, thanks again for being here. Love to you all. Love is still the answer. We see you next Saturday right here.
Thanks,
Take care,
Joe.
everyone.
Really nice to be here.